Evening, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about, in connection with what was discussed yesterday in the First World War, regarding the Battle of Verdun. Now, at this point, the French had been shouldering the majority of the load in terms of the Western Front, fighting Germany. And there was a reason for this. The French and the Germans had required 2 years conscription in the army. They had a large standing army, whereas the British did not. The British in 1914, 15, and 16, they had a volunteer army. So whereas the French and the Germans had well-seasoned troops, the British really did not. And when things were going quite heavily during the Battle of Verdun, the French were quite frankly getting annoyed with the British, feeling that the British were not pulling their share of the load. And so they pushed them into an attack north in the area of the Somme area, several miles north of Verdun. And the plan was there'd be about 40 French divisions along with the several British divisions. But because things were going horribly at Verdun, French reneged on that and only sent 5 divisions. So it was really just the British. And most of these men in the British Army during the Battle of the Somme in 1916 were brand new recruits, never seen combat. And so what they did at the end of June in 1916 was largely to relieve the burden on Verdun. They began shelling and just hitting the German line with their cannons repeatedly for like a week, turning the whole place into what they thought would be a big swamp. And then what they did afterwards, their British commander Haig, what he had his men do was on the 1st of July 1916, was he had the men come out of their trenches and walk across no man's land, up to a quarter of a mile, somewhere up to a full mile across this frontier, and walk to the German line. Some people thought it was stupidity on Haig's part to have the men walk, but they said, because the German machine guns completely mowed them down. But they looked at it realistically. How are you going to get men who are carrying 70 pounds of equipment across an area filled with crater holes a mile over there to the other side and still have enough strength to fight? The only logical response was to actually have them walk. And so they had them marching across no man's land. The German machine guns opened up. On the first day alone, the British suffered over 20,000 casualties. And that's the largest single day loss in all of British history up to that point. And when there was one individual testimonial I read where a gentleman was walking with his regiment out there in no man's land on the Somme, he tripped and fell. By the time he could get back up, his entire regiment, upwards of 1,000 men, were completely gone. Because the Germans were in a trench and they were so deeply entrenched in the way they were at, they couldn't get to them. So this went on for months. And this is all intended to take the pressure off of Verdun. It helped to a degree because the Germans began shifting troops from Verdun over to the Somme. Went back and forth for months until what I thought was only done in a few days went on for all the way through November before it was finally canceled. So it's like it was a horrendous loss of life for the British in that situation. There you go.